2024, the year of the backlogs, for me anyways. There's not too many games coming out this year I'm excited for, but there was one though, one that I planned to play for a while, but I thought it'd be a week of playing and then put the game down because it didn't have too much substance to it. Oh how wrong I was. Palworld was released into early access on January 19th, on Steam and Xbox Game Pass. Palworld was being advertised by everyone but the devs as Pokemon with guns, including Jeff Keighley himself.
In other words, it's kind of like Pokemon with guns.
However, Palworld will turn out to be so much more, taking inspiration from games such as Pokemon, Breath of the Wild, Ark and more. The game is at heart a survival game. You have a hunger bar which needs to be maintained, and a temperature gauge which controls whether you can enter hot or cold biomes without protection. You also have access to PAL boxes, which is essentially an item that allows you to set up a dedicated base on the map. Your base can include structures that you build from materials that you have to farm, such as wood, stone and later into the game, metal. The difference between this and another survival game is that there's some little and big creatures walking around known as pals. These pals can be captured and become a part of your team that you carry around. You can also assign them to your base to work, whether it's fairly or unfairly. By fairly I mean you have them work but you feed them well and have nice warm beds for them to sleep in at night, with spars laying around so after farming ore all day they can relax. Oh, and you also pet them. By unfairly, I mean you feed them nothing but berries despite how big they are, and you hold them at gunpoint to keep working. And if that doesn't work, you set up a trap and have them hung upside down with a fire pit below them to show the other pals what happens when they don't listen. Oh, and you butcher them. I'd say that's pretty unfair. The aim of the game is to level up by catching pals and building a stronger team to help you beat bosses that are in dedicated towers, as well as alpha pals which are essentially world bosses that you can take on. As you level up, you unlock more items to use and build. These range from simple building structures to harnesses that you can make for select pals which allow you to use their abilities. For example, you can make a saddle for Nightwing to ride it and fly. Or you can turn your cute Firefox pal into a flamethrower. It's up to you. Later in the game you can unlock guns and items like grenades, which is where the game has earned the slogan, Pokemon with guns. As you explore the world, you can build bases and set up an entire camp where you can create a nice home for yourself and your pals, or create a sweatshop and have them constantly crafting your pal spheres and ammo for your expeditions. These bases can be raided by either a group of pals or humans, sometimes both. During a raid, enemies will attempt to slaughter your pals and destroy your structures, sometimes setting them on fire, or in the case of a Toko Toko raid, kamikazing into buildings. But it's fun. It's so fun in fact that the game has blown up. It's the most bought and played game on Steam right now. At the time of recording, it has 986,000 players playing right now, on a Sunday morning, about 2 weeks after release. CSGO is in second place with 756,000, more than 200,000 less than Palworld. The game was made on a budget of $6.75 million, starting with just 10 people working on it, which grew to about 50 across development, whilst also outsourcing some work. It's been in development for at least 3 years and it's still ongoing. For comparison, Starfield's budget was $200 million, with over 7 years of development, with 250 people working on it. Yeah. Palworld is a monster catcher combined with survival, and since the devs clearly put a lot of love and thought into the game, it works. The developers of such game are Pocket Pair, a Japanese company. The CEO is Takeru Mizobi, and they have created games such as Craftopia and have an upcoming game called Nevergrave. There's also another game they've made, AI Art Imposter. And you guessed it, it involves AI. Now I bring this up because to the surprise of no one, this game has had some controversy surrounding it. Who would have guessed? One of the controversies is that the devs have used AI in the creation of pals. What evidence is there to support this? Well, Mr. Mizobi has gone on record stating he's a fan of AI, and they've made an AI game. That's it. Now, albeit using AI in a game and not being honest and tagging it as using AI on Steam is an issue, and personally I wouldn't want to support devs that use AI and pretend it's humanly made. However, right now there's no evidence at all other than the CEO stating some positive things about AI on X. Mr. Mizobi has stated that the designs of the pals were actually designed by the likes of a single graduate student. If you look at the designs of pals, you can see there's some similarities to that of Pokemon designs. Now let me ask you a question. Do you think you need AI to create pals that look similar to Pokemon? No, you don't. You can just look at them. There's entire fan bases of people that make new Pokemon. I don't think it's too far-fetched to assume that someone could look at a Pokemon that's based on an animal and go, yeah, I can make something like that. I'm not saying that the pals' designs are simply copied and slightly tweaked. just that the majority of them are based off creatures that exist in the real world, such as cats, wolves, sheep and more, and there's only a finite amount of ways you can uniquely design them, so there's no surprise to me that some of the pals do look like Pokemon. But that's clearly the main source of Palworld's controversy, the similarities between Pokemon and it, from the designs to the ways of catching them, so let's quickly cover some of the similarities between the two. Pokeballs and Palspheres being the method of catching and storing the creatures, and each having better versions to increase the catching rate. Types being Fire, Water, Electric, Ground, Ice, Grass, Neutral, Dragon and Dark in Palworld, and Pokemon has all these plus more. The Pokédex and Paldeck being the device that essentially tracks the creatures and tells you more information about them. Last but not least, the designs. You're not going to see me denying the similarities between some of the Pals and Pokemon's designs. For example, Grintail and Galarian Meowth look very similar, as do Boltmane and Luxray, but let me just point this out. Grintail is based off a cat, Boltmane is an electric type dog inspired pal. Meowth and Luxray are also inspired by their respective animal. In the Pokemon franchise there are multiple dog inspired creatures, same with cats, birds, rabbits and many more, and they don't look too similar from one another. So taking a design from one franchise and comparing it to another and saying they copied the homework, despite the fact they're all based off a real world animal, is kinda silly. Realistically, how many ways can one design the same creature? I mean, Pokemon has been doing this for so long they've resorted to making a teapot Pokemon. Not to mention that some Pokemon look like they were inspired by creatures from Digimon or Dragon's Quest. I don't see many people claiming that Game Freak are using AI to make new Pokemon, despite some looking like older ones and some being based off the most random stuff there is. Another note is the models are very similar to some of the ones used in Pokemon. However, this was later revealed by the same person who showed the models as being fake. Nevertheless, if Nintendo did find out that Pocket Pair stole assets or models, then they're more than entitled to sue them and they should be held accountable. But right now, there's no more evidence for that. I believe that the controversy and the real reason why this game has been as successful as it is down to the audiences the game appeals to. You have the audience that enjoy Pokemon, however are bored of the same formula being done every single game, and that's the category I fall into. You have the audience that enjoys survival based games and wanted to check the game out based on that. And you have the audience that enjoy Pokemon and are ride or die for Nintendo and Game Freak, and hate to see another company in game with the same formula of creature catching. Palworld innovates the genre and adds its own values to it, such as the survival side, and all the quirky things like being able to use a penguin as a rocket launcher. The first two audiences have taken a liking to the game for the fact that it's good, and makes a genre which has been beaten to death new and fresh, attracting the audiences of fans of Pokemon and survival games alike. Then you have the latter who see it's doing well with the same genre as the one they White Knight for, and what do you get when you cross angry fans on Twitter? Controversy! Nintendo even tweeted stating that they were aware of the game and are looking into it, essentially saying to everyone, stop white knighting us, we know this game exists. But realistically, Nintendo would have sued or shut this game down before it even came out if they believed that there were some copyright issues going on in Palworld, and they haven't. And they are one of the most litigious companies out there. I mean, we can't emulate old games without having a hitman sent to our door. Unfortunately, we can't jump off the toxic gossip train just yet, as there's one more controversial station to stop at, and that is that Palworld is promoting animal abuse to players. Who is going to play Palworld, shoot a Celeray in the face with a Glock, put the game down, and then proceed to go out and shoot an animal in attempts to capture it? No one. And if there are people that do that, they most likely would have done that without playing the game. It's just a fun game where you can mess about and do dumb stuff that you could and would never do in real life. I don't think kids who are more impressionable are playing Minecraft, beating a cow with their bare hands and collecting a steak from them, are then going out and getting into a bare knuckle fight with livestock to farm food. It's a video game, a very good one at that, and one that is still in early access, and yet it's riding at the top of the charts across Steam, hitting over 1 million players on Steam alone in the first 2 days. And that number just rising, up to a peak of 2.1 million players at one time, and over 8 million copies sold in under a week. The game is fun, and there's a lot more to it than initially expected. To say I am addicted to the game would be an understatement. Palworld came out of nowhere and took the internet by storm. Every YouTuber and streamer was playing it and talking about it. A lot of the time, when games blow up, they tend to die as quick as they come up. Look at Among Us or Fall Guys for example. Pocket Pair have announced a roadmap for the game, so a lot more content to look forward to in the coming months and years. So the question is, Will Palworld be a game that lives up to the rise it had and stick around, or will it perish in the dirt with a waning player base? I guess we'll have to wait and find out. Either way, they need to sort this AI out soon. This chicken will not stay in the ranch.